I lost my virginity to a guy who never wanted more, and now I'm stuck. I'm reaching out to anyone who's experienced something similar, because I'm struggling to move on and I'm afraid I never will. I'm a girl in her early 20s and a few months ago, I met a guy, a digital nomad who was staying temporarily in my city for a month. We spent a lot of time together. He integrated me into his life, introduced me to his friends, and showed me a level of attention, affection, and emotional intimacy I had never experienced before. He was my first. Not just sexually, but emotionally too. I'd never been with anyone before him, and I gave myself to him completely. But because it was my first time, I was incredibly nervous. I had a lot of physical difficulty. There were moments during sex where it hurt me, or I'd freeze up completely. I was insecure, panicked, and felt like I wasn't enough. I didn't know what to do or how to communicate what I was feeling. And yet, he was incredibly sweet. He never made me feel guilty. He would tell me it didn't matter if we did anything, that he just liked spending time with me. I felt seen, safe, and cared for. For the first time in my life, I felt truly close to someone. 1 week before his departure to the next country, I even told him I was starting to develop real feelings. He responded by saying that he understood, and that it had been special for him too. But then he asked me if I would prefer to stop seeing him, so I wouldn't end up feeling more hurt when he eventually had to leave. Of course, I was already too emotionally involved, so I told him I wanted to keep seeing him until he left. After a month that we intensely spent together, he left for the next country he was supposed to go to, even though I asked him to stay a bit more at my place to spend more time together, but he said he couldn't. After he left, he sent me a long message saying how special I was, how much he admired me, how he had never spent so much time with someone in such a short period. It felt sincere. So I asked him why we couldn't see each other again. He replied with an audio message saying he wasn't ready for a relationship, that 9 months earlier he had ended something with someone else and still wasn't in the right headspace. Later I investigated about this, and it was actually a dynamic similar to ours, because he stayed with this girl only for the 2 months he stayed in her country. He said he didn't rule out seeing me again, but he couldn't promise anything. That he cared about me deeply and wanted to keep in touch. Later, I also confronted him about the fact that I felt misled. He kept saying he wasn't looking for a relationship, and I told him that, honestly, I wish he had been clearer about that from the beginning, especially because I had trusted him so deeply. I gave him my virginity, invited him into my home, and shared some incredibly vulnerable parts of myself with him. But he only clarified that he wasn't ready for anything serious after all of that had happened. I told him that his words hadn't matched his actions, and that I felt a bit used, even if unintentionally. He replied saying that it had never been his intention to hurt me, and that he was sorry if I felt that way. He added that he thought the fact that he had told me he was going to leave the city made things clear enough, that it should have been implied nothing serious would come of it. Then he sent me a very long and extremely confusing voice note, where he kept contradicting himself sentence after sentence. It was hard to even make sense of what he was trying to say. I tried to stay in contact, like he said. But he started replying after 5 days, then after 2, he was on a trip with his friends. The inconsistency hurt. I realized pretending to be just friends was making me more anxious and heartbroken. So I stopped replying. I didn't explain anything because I felt like I had already explained enough. I just disappeared from the conversation. I didn't wish him a happy birthday a week later, stopped watching his stories, stopped liking his posts. 2 weeks later, he messaged me again, short, vague messages like "Are you going to a football match?" or stuff like that. I replied coldly, not out of anger, but because I was afraid of getting pulled back in. I didn't try to keep the conversation going. But I still think about him every day. I still replay our moments, our intimacy, his voice, his touch. It's been months, but I feel stuck in that time. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I obsess. I cry. I miss something that technically never became a real relationship. And I also feel guilty because maybe I've been too cold with him in the last texts, and I keep blaming myself. Now I'm trying to meet new people, but I didn't find anyone interesting and I compare everyone to him. It's like a part of me is still waiting for something that won't happen. Also, I feel a bit embarrassed that my inexperience and difficulty with intimacy pushed him away. Have you ever felt this way? How do you heal from your first experience, when it leaves this much emotional weight behind? How do you stop idealizing someone who wasn't even fully yours? And what do you think I should do? Why do I keep blaming myself for everything? And why I cannot see him as someone who did something bad to me? Any advice, personal stories, or even words of comfort would mean a lot. Thank you.